When I took a look at the selfie that Little Kim put up on Instagram last week, it showed how deep the self hatred Afro American Negro women have for each other. And the horrible truth about your Afro American Negro woman is no one hates the Afro American Negro woman more than the Afro American Negro woman. And this is expressed in not only the way that she presents herself, but in her actions as well. Because when we look at this Afro American Negro woman, she tells the world every day that she does not like herself, she does not love herself, she does not care about herself. Every action that she participates in pretty much expresses the low self esteem that your Afro American Negro woman has. Because if a woman loved herself, she would not be going out here and buying packages of synthetic blonde hair to weave in her head. If a woman loved herself, she would not be going out here buying skin creams to bleach her skin to change it into another color. If a woman loved herself, she would not be going to a plastic surgeon to get her nose changed to resemble that of a white woman. Now, where does this low self esteem start? Well, you can trace it back to your white supremacy and racism. This is one of the few times I will mention that because historically, the standard of beauty for people in America has always been the white woman. And even, I would say, throughout the world, because there are people in other countries who also have the same view that the white woman is the ideal standard of beauty. But when you go even further into this dysfunction, you see that this Afro American woman who has imbibed this standard has taken it to another level. And over the last 40 years, they have really gone off the deep end in embracing this whole concept of the white woman being the idealized standard of beauty. And a lot of that really has to do with the way this Afro American Negro woman embraced the white feminist movement. Now, the white feminist movement, the Afro American Negro woman thought she had an opportunity to be the equal of a white woman. And some of them even thought they could be white women. Now, I go in depth on this in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, because a lot of black women, this is what they really aspired. This is what they thought they would get when they embraced when they left the civil rights movement and embraced the feminist movement. They thought they were going to be just like white women, and some of them thought they were going to be white women. And that's why they joined the feminist movement, not understanding that the white liberal had planned to swerve when he allowed feminism to come into their communities. Was he was planning that because he knew that most of these white feminists were lesbians, and that these white feminists pretty much they had real father issues and mental health issues, and as black women tried to emulate these behaviors, they brought dysfunction into their own communities. So they had no understanding that in their quest to become like white women, they became just as dysfunctional as the white women on the fringe of society, because your white feminist pretty much has an identity issue in that they want to be like white men. And black women who imbibed the feminist movement imbibed these ideas, and they became super confused as related to their identity, because your black woman who's imbibed feminism, really she aspires to be a white woman, but she has no understanding that the white woman she's aspiring to be like is a white lesbian who aspires to be a white man. And this leads to the gender confusion that they have and the identity crisis that many Afro American Negro women have today. They're very, very confused to their identity. And that compounds the low self esteem that they had regarding their image. So they are desperate to win the approval of really the white God that they want, but they'll settle for the Afro American Negro man. And again, because they have low self esteem regarding themselves, that reflects in the people they pursue relationships with, and it reflects in the way they present themselves in public. Because if you look at the relationships that the Afro American Negro woman gets involved with, she picks the lowest seed and most dysfunctional men to ever get involved with. Your dope boys, your thugs, your pookies, your ray rays. And she gets involved with those type of men due to her low self-esteem and her low self-worth. And because she has such low self-esteem and low self-worth, she thinks that this is the best she can do. And really, she is really getting involved with those kind of guys because she is insecure and she doesn't feel confident that she can pursue a relationship with a man with leadership status, a man with self-worth, and a man with self-confidence. She feels that that man may reject her, and she couldn't deal with that type of rejection. So she deals with these low seed, low grade Negroes because she feels that if this man has to depend on me, then he has to be here. And she would rather have a codependent relationship with a dysfunctional Negro rather than have an interdependent relationship with a healthy black man. This is why your black woman will pretty much reject relationships with decent, hardworking, good black men because she does not want an equal relationship. Again, because of her low self-esteem, she wants a relationship where she can remain in power and control. And she feels that if she is not in power and control, then there's no way for her to feel any sort of power or control or even love from this man. She's trying to get love by controlling and having power over someone. Basically, that's why she sees these Afro-American Negro men as pets, because she wants to love him as under her, not see him as an equal. That makes her uncomfortable. That's why, again, she does not like to have relationships with functioning men, because for her, a functional man makes her uncomfortable because she cannot have power and control over him. She cannot deal with any sort of interdependent relationship. And that, again, goes back to her low self-esteem. And her low self-esteem is also expressed, again, in the way she dresses herself, how she overcompensates by putting on expensive designer clothes, expensive shoes, and just adorning herself so that people will pay attention to her labels and think that she has value that way. And she thinks that by putting on these expensive clothes that people will see her and see some sort of worth in her. Unfortunately, when you put on expensive clothes, as I've said in my Stop Simping, all people are seeing are your designer clothes and your designer shoes and your college degrees. They're not seeing you as a person or you on your presence. And this, again, reflects on the low self-esteem of the Afro-American Negro woman because she has to overcompensate. And this is why she is so obsessed with these college degrees. This is why she is so obsessed with that six-figure job. This is why she is so obsessed with these material things, because she thinks that by getting these items and having these things, it will reflect on her self-worth. But again, this Afro-American Negro woman's self-worth is down to zero. It's at the bottom, which is, again, reflected in her actions, reflected in the man she gets involved with, and reflected in the way she overcompensates in trying to get these jobs and these degrees. She feels absolutely worthless. And this is why we see this whole trend of swirling. That goes into the low self-esteem of this Afro-American Negro woman as well, because, again, she feels worthless. She feels that she cannot elevate this black man to love her, and now she's deifying the white man and trying to win his approval. Excuse me. And she thinks that if she gets that white man's approval, she will finally have some sort of worth, some sort of value, and she will find some sort of approval, because in her eyes, this white man is God, and winning his approval, especially away from this white woman, is the ultimate standard when it comes down to things. And if she feels if she can win his approval, she will have the ultimate value. Unfortunately, again, this goes back to her low self-esteem, and that has to do with how she feels about herself on the inside. I believe even if these Negro women got relationships with white men, they would still feel worthless. Again, this goes to who they are on the inside, because, again, what you are on the inside is reflected on the outside. And those insecurities and fears that this Afro-American Negro woman has, they pretty much destroy everything that she ever touches. This is why all her relationships fail. And this is why 70% of African American Negro women are single, because they have this low self-esteem, they have this low self-worth, and this culture has been taught to them from generation to generation. They're just taught not to value themselves, not to find value in self, not to love themselves, because you see that reflected in their behaviors, you see that reflected in their actions, and you will see that reflected in how they express themselves. Because when you talk to many times to this Afro-American woman about her self-esteem and her self-worth, she often gets defensive, she often gets argumentative, she'll say she doesn't have a problem, and it's clear to everyone that she really has self-esteem issues, self-worth issues. All you have to do is just look around at who she involves herself with, who she, what she buys on, and what she deifies, which is this white man. She's doing all these things to try to build herself up, not understanding that everything that she's trying to build herself up with is tearing her down, and she really needs to really take a long, hard look at herself and see why she's doing these things. Unfortunately, most Afro-American Negro women refuse to take that long, hard look at themselves and to self-examine themselves and their behaviors and their actions. Instead, whenever somebody presents them with this, they again become argumentative and defensive, and they refuse to take that long, hard look of why they are participating in these dysfunctional and self-destructive behaviors, like desecrating their own face and doing things to try to make themselves into a white woman when there's nothing wrong with the beauty of being a black woman. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.